Hello everyone and welcome back, and in this episode of the series of CE-5 initiating contact with extraterrestrials, we're going to go into some of the technology and devices that we can use to document, we could say bring somewhat a scientific perspective and documentation to CE-5. Now, this is a brief overview: EMF meter, magnetic field Gauss meter, compass, Geiger counter, non-contact thermometer, laser, binoculars, digital audio recorder, night vision camera, digital video camera, night vision monocular, infrared scope, all sky camera, UV camera, thermal imaging camera, drone, and walkie-talkie. Going on, satellite tracker, plane tracker, space weather, planet tracker, LED light, infrared light beacon, radar detector, weather app, and trail camera. Really what I'm going into with this is equipment that can be used. The number one equipment of all time is your heart. That's the number one thing. You don't need all of this stuff that I'm going to go through. I've accumulated a lot of this stuff over the years, and what I will say, if you're going to get a camera, just spend the money and get a good one straight up. I've gone through so many different cameras. Some of them I've used up their life as well. Life expectancy, they've just died from being used that much as well. So that's just one thing to be aware of as well. So equipment and its purpose. So the equipment I am about to discuss is not must-have, but I am including it to give you an idea of the types of equipment that can be used when making contact to sense and document the events that occur. For example, these devices can be used when filming or taking photos of crafts, ETs, anomalies, apparitions, and paranormal activity, some of which goes unnoticed to the human eye. Also, in a way, it brings science to documenting the unexplained, or what seems to be the unexplained at this time, including temperature changes and EMF, electromagnetic field readings from an unknown source. There is much that can be documented. Electromagnetic, magnetic, and temperature changes occur as a result of changes in the environment for a reason, which can be either natural or paranormal, although the paranormal is actually normal. It might be a sign that something or someone is actually there with you and trying to communicate. So these devices are a way to pick up whether there is a presence with you. Sometimes it helps to have various types of equipment to document your experiences, and sometimes you can even use them as a way to communicate with the paranormal, including otherworldly beings. Be aware though, because sometimes the beings will drain batteries. It's theorized that they will use the energy from batteries in our devices, and even us, our energy, to manifest and or communicate in the best or only way they can. So, EMF meter. This is one here called a K2 meter. This is very popular on the paranormal shows. I've had this for years. This picks up the electromagnetic field, and so with this, you'll usually use it to start off with to go around the people with you, your group, your environment, to get a base level reading. This way you sort of know what's normal in your environment. After that, you're looking for what's anomalous in terms of high readings on this that cannot be explained. This is where keeping it away from other electrical devices is important. Now, it's theorized that beings can manipulate the electromagnetic field and that it can enhance when they're in your presence. Now, you could use this and it could go to red, or let's say any other color but the base level green, in a response to a question. So you might go, all right, can you flash this up twice for yes and once for no? And then you can proceed with questions. It is a recurring thing that we've found over many years now, not just myself, but many around the world, which is why you see it in a lot of paranormal shows, of them using one of these devices to interact with, in that case, we could say the dead, or if there's something dark around. But it can also be used with ETs, angels, other forms of intelligences. This is where the paranormal, ETs, near-death experiences, everything, consciousness, it's all tied together. So I've written here, an EMF meter reads the electromagnetic field in the environment. It has been theorized that beings manipulate electromagnetic fields in order to manifest. I've had an EMF meter go off many times while I've been filming a UFO and when beings are in my presence. Sometimes when having experiences, you might see the EMF meter light up depending on the type you have. So some, in this case, it will light up with different lights and colours, and others, they'll make a noise. And some may just have a digital screen that if it's not lit up in the dark, you may need an LED light to light it up so you can see the reading. A lot of them are self-illuminating these days as well. So with the meter lighting up, this can happen when seeing an apparition or when having experiences like seeing orbs, balls of light, hearing disembodied voices, unexplainable languages, noises, being touched, or feelings of electrical sensations on the body, hearing unexplainable tones and changes in temperatures, or while seeing images in your mind's eye. Again, this is where the paranormal intersects and crosses over with ET contact, because some beings will speak languages and you may not understand it. Star language, light language, they're languages that you empathically, intuitively read or hear. When you're hearing it, what do you intuitively feel? So there is this type of thing that you can catch it on recordings, which I'll go into as well. Now, if you are using an EMF meter, always do a base reading before contact by first scanning your own body with the device and the area you are making contact in. There could be power lines nearby or underground, which can give off a false reading. If you're in a house with bad wiring or electrical appliances, you might pick up high EMFs. This is also why you need to turn off your phone and other equipment, because you don't want a false reading. So that's important when making contact, to turn off devices that can affect you getting a proper reading. So try not to have the meter near other equipment, because EMFs might register on the meter and you could end up thinking you're getting contact or an unexplainable reading, when in fact it can be explained. After a base reading, if you use your meter later and the reading goes higher to a level that is not normal compared to earlier readings, it might mean that a being or other paranormal influence is around. You can also use your meter to ask questions and communicate with beings by asking them to flash the lights or trigger the sound on it, once for yes and twice for no. One of my meters is a K2. I like it because it's silent, which allows me to listen for anything else that might be happening when it lights up. Now the magnetic field meter, the Gales meter. This is pretty cool as well. That's it there. So this will make a noise. I'll actually just put it near the computer. That's sitting on the laptop. So that's to give you an example of that giving off I think that was a red. Yeah, that's giving off about an 8 or a 9 on that, which is in the red zone, which isn't good. So that's the Gauss meter. Again, these aren't a must-have, but I thought it would be worth sharing with you. Now, a magnetic field meter, also known as a magnetometer, can read and pick up changes in the magnetic field. Sometimes this means a being is trying to manifest or a craft is nearby. And I've had these go off many times when crafts have been nearby. Its purpose is much the same as an EMF meter, although the difference is that the EMF meter reads the electromagnetic field and the magnetometer, the Gauss meter, picks up on the magnetic field. Always do a base reading at a site before you do contact work, so you can tell if you are getting a higher reading than normal. Compass. I've got a compass, but not on me at the moment. Compasses are great for a couple of reasons. First, you can use one to document the direction in which activity is occurring. Also, if it spins, freezes, or points in the wrong direction, you may have activity. With the compass, you can also determine any changes in the magnetic field. When this happens, it might mean a being or craft is nearby. Geiger counter. Now, some of these I don't have the batteries in it because over time the batteries can erode and damage the devices, so I regularly make sure that the things I don't use don't have any batteries in it unless I'm holding events, which I'll be doing here from the sanctuary. But this is a Geiger counter here. Geiger counters will give you a reading of any radiation in the area. With some reports of UFOs and landing trace cases, there is sometimes a high level of radiation that can affect people and the surrounding environment. Sometimes years after an event, high levels of radiation can still be picked up when measured with the Geiger counter. Basically, you can use a Geiger counter like an EMF or Gauss meter. So do a base reading before making contact. This way you will know a high level reading was not present beforehand. On the other hand, Black Ops craft, ARV, alien reproduction vehicles, or exotic military vehicles sometimes give off a radiation reading. Most of the time AT vehicles are more advanced and do not use any form of nuclear propulsion. Although I've seen cases where beings have teleported to the ground and dematerialised, Later, when the area is scanned with a Geiger counter, very high levels of radiation can be picked up in the exact same place where the being appeared and dematerialized. Non-contact thermometer. So with a non-contact thermometer, this is one here. These types of thermometers are good because they give you a reading straight away and tell you the temperature in the atmosphere directly where you point the device. Just like with ghost hunting, temperature inversions can also be a byproduct of ET phenomena when they are making contact or land a craft on you in apparition form. People are going to go, what the hell did you just say? They can land a craft on you. Go back to earlier videos. I go into this material in depth that yes, they can do that. And that's probably good to watch connected to this series as well. Sometimes when there is a huge change in temperature, a being could be nearby. Even a craft might be closer than you think. Be logical when you use such a device because there can be general and explainable reasons for a change in temperature. Is there wind or not? These are things that a lot of things can be explained. So, like I say, don't think that every single little thing is going to be paranormal. Most things can be explained. We're looking for things that can't be explained, but yet registered and picked up with devices to back up the contact that you are having. Try to debunk the experience before saying anything is unexplained. Discernment is key and it goes a long way in documenting valid contact. Try moving your hand around to define any area with a cold or hot spot and then get out your infrared camera. You might capture something, or even with a normal camera. So if you register something, even with the EMF meter, Gauss meter, Geiger counter, with the thermometer, and it's unexplainable what you think's going on, take a photo. There might be something appear in that photo or even on the video camera that you may not see at the time with the human eyes. Again, we can only see a fraction of 0.005% of physical matter. There's a lot that we're not seeing, even we could say on the edges of the visible light spectrum. Laser. Now, lasers are great. They're banned here in Australia unless you've got an astronomy license. And they've got a few different applications. What I use now is just a high-powered, high-looms spotlight. You still get the beam in the sky. So that's just a tip there for those in Australia or where you are if the lasers are banned. Now, the type of laser you want to use, at the very least, is a wavelength of 532 nm, 405 nm, which has a range of around 5 miles depending on the type of laser. Although these are illegal in some countries, like I just stated. In America, they've got some great ones over there when I'm over there doing contact. Lasers are great for more than one reason when you were trying to make contact. They make it easy to point out UFOs to others in your group who might not be able to see them. Also, a laser is good when getting someone to point it towards the area of the ET craft if you were using a camera already on zoom, or if it's a night vision monocular with high zoom, because you can just follow the laser up until you see the craft and start filming immediately. You might miss filming the action with a monocular, or if the camera is in zoom mode after you've filmed a previous experience as well. That's happened to me before. So keep that in mind, that after you last used the camera, you might want to put it back on normal setting, because sometimes if you turn it on, it's already on zoom. You're spending seconds to try and zoom right out so you can find the craft on the viewfinder and then zoom in on it. You can use a laser to communicate with the craft and ask it to power up. Sometimes the beings can't see it, but some see the whole area at once, and or they can connect consciously to you. So some beings can actually see, if they connect with your group, they can perceive what everyone's experiencing through your eyes individually at the same time, which is mind-blowing. They understand what you were trying to do, and they can see what you're seeing through your eyes in some cases, so they know what you're doing. Sometimes if you flash the laser once, they will power up once. If you turn it on and off twice in a row, they will power up twice in a row. There are many ways they can interact with you when you are using a laser. You can do a similar thing with a high-powered flashlight or car headlights. Doing this shows interaction between you on the ground and them in the sky. Make sure your type of laser is legal in your country or state. Also, having someone designated on the laser might be easier, and excess of people with lasers can also create problems. Warning, do not point a laser at someone's eyes, at helicopters, or at planes or otherworldly beings. Check with local laws if you can have one. Now, binoculars. Binoculars are a great tool for getting up close views of objects in the air or to check out the surrounding environment for activity. For example, you might hear noises in a direction or see lights far in the distance. When using binoculars, you might be able to find out if the activity is explainable, such as people camping, cars, etc., if the area has enough light to see. Digital audio recorder. Many ghost hunting teams use them for catching disembodied voice phenomena. This type of recorder allows you to ask questions, and when reviewing the recording later, you can hear a response. The same technique can be applied to CE-5, although you might not get a human voice, but rather something spoken in an unknown language or star language. So there's many digital voice recorders out there on the market you can use. Also, you could use your phone if it's on airplane mode. Just press record, have it going, ask some questions when you're feeling energies about, or there might be an event or a sighting taking place. Then press stop, go back over it. You might be surprised if you catch something. So you might capture a number of things such as a clicking noise, the humming noise of a craft or tones. A digital recorder is a great device to use. You might even get a series of beeps or coded messages that are mathematical in their response, depending on whom you're interacting with. You might even hear unexplainable sounds, but if you can capture them on the recording, the unexplainable sound might be evidence. Evidence of what? Well, even if you cannot explain what you heard, going through a process of what it is not can provide evidence of unexplainable phenomenon. Also, time coding the recordings is great because it provides a record of the time and date the event took place, in case something does happen. Night vision camera. Now, night vision cameras are great. There are many on the market, although most are only good at capturing events local to you on the ground and not in the sky, although some pick up the stars. Infrared is part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and it is just outside the range of what we can see with the human eye. It can also pick up what we do see. It's a great device to have because you can see in the dark with it when you look through the viewfinder, and you might catch something that is near you but that you cannot see with your naked eye. From bangs to crafts to orbs, this will help you capture some of what's around you. If you sense something in the area, or even if you were just looking through the viewfinder, you might be surprised what you end up capturing. What I also have is a Sony 4K camera with night shot capability, where the little infrared light, you can't see it, but it shoots out a beam, and this has a filter go over the lens so it can record in infrared. And so I recommend getting something like this, which is an infrared illumination light that illuminates even more than what you get on a normal camera. So more infrared light, you can't see it, but because it's sending out more infrared light with the filter over the lens, and with it on record, you're actually able to pick up more and see more in the darkness with it as well, if that makes sense. So there's many on the market out there, but I recommend getting a good infrared camera, though I'll be going into more cameras because these are really only good for inside, and sometimes you'll get stuff in the sky with them. Just an average camera is great as well. Cameras are great for capturing evidence. Sometimes taking photos in the dark without the flash on opens the chance for what you capture to be more unexplainable, because using the flash can sometimes make bugs, dust, and other debris in the air appear unexplainable when in fact they can be explained. You might see unexplainable light sources, bangs, or crafts appear in your photos. Of course, you can use the flash if you want to. Either way, you can capture evidence. A lot of cameras available these days allow you to record too, and although some cameras are great for photos, they are not as good for recording video. If you sense something, take a photo or a series of photos, you might end up with something interesting. Just remember, the higher the pixels, the better the image quality. Also, if your camera also records video, the better the optical zoom, the better the images, and the closer you will get to recording the phenomena. A lot of the time, if people take a photo of the sun or other light source, a lens flare can appear as an anomaly for those who don't know how cameras and light work. So be aware of this too. Digital video recorder. So going on, these devices are great to use for a number of reasons, including recording crafts, orbs, bangs, and witnesses to events. Using a video camera is crucial to capturing evidence. It's best to get the highest quality you can. 4K are popular these days. They are basically 4 times HD, which is approximately 4 times more pixels than a HD camera. Go for good quality and good zooming capabilities. Just be careful with the zoom when filming UFOs. Sometimes a craft will appear in the footage not as it actually is when zoomed up too much, because the sensor in the lens creates a diamond effect. Now, I'm using a Panasonic 4K camera to film this. That's my main camera for a lot of things, especially during the day. This is my Sony a7S II. This is what a lot of television companies use as well. These are a few $1,000s. They've been around for a few years now. Very good quality. These don't have night vision, but they make filming in the dark look absolutely beautiful. It's sort of, how would I describe it? This is like a low light camera as well, as great for just professional photography and video during the daytime as well. So this brings out, we could say, the stars in an amazing way. Sometimes you'll still get to see the tops of trees, reference points. But this camera I highly recommend, and I don't think you can get any better at this time unless you've got a bit more money or access to different types of night vision devices, which I'll go into in a moment as well. So just watch how closely you zoom up. It is best to use this type of recorder with a tripod if you can, although sometimes the crafts are overhead and they can be hard to film when you are using a tripod, especially when you've got super long lenses, or if the craft is right above you. You haven't got time to run as far as you can to try and get a side angle or get another reference point. So this is where I've got quick release on all my tripods to make it easier if I've just got to do it by hand. If you can use a tripod, great. If not, you know, capture what you can, like you can see with the years of stuff that I've been filming. The best camera in my opinion is the Sony a7S II, which I just showed you, which I use these days, although for a fraction of the price. The Psionics Aurora is a color night vision camera that's very affordable, under $1,000. I usually carry this around on me as well as other cameras. This is the Psionics Aurora. This is colored night vision. Apparently many of the police departments and military are using these around the world now as well. And they've got you can put an SD card in it, record straight to it. It gets sound. It sees in the dark. The darker it gets, we could say it gets harder unless it's an illuminated object or a star, something like that. Though I've also got a infrared flashlight that I can use in sync with it, which just is great for on the ground. A lot of people don't have heaps of money to spend on this stuff. I get it. It's taken me years to do this. So I do recommend even just a Psionics Aurora starting out, unless you've got more money, go and get a Gen 3 night vision scope that's able to have a camera adapter to be put onto a camera. Those are probably just as good as the Sony a7S II, if not better in some cases as well. So infrared monoculars, these are great. They're using infrared to see things. I don't have one anymore. What I recommend is turning off the infrared light on them, because they're useless if you're filming in the sky. But basically they look like a scope. You can put an SD card in them. They're usually in black and white, the footage, and you've got an eyepiece that you can see the screen in it. They're affordable for a few $100s, so an infrared monocular is a great thing to start out with if you can't afford the Psionics or other things. But turn the infrared light off because it's pretty much useless, which means you've got more battery power, which means longer life with the camera until you've got to change the batteries again. Infrared scope. These are very useful. These are basically scopes that allow you to see in infrared. The military and law enforcement use them, and there are different generations and qualities. Generation 1, Gen 1, is the lowest quality, but now they are up to Gen 3, and I know they are beyond that as well now. Some have an adapter so you can connect a video camera to them and film, which is how most people in the CE-5 community have been filming for years. So I've got one here. This is a Spark Core one. This is just Gen 1, but still is pretty decent, especially if you've got a low light camera connected to it to film through it. What I will say with this is you don't want to turn them on during the day because you can bugger them. Make sure you're in darkness when you use them. But this, you know, there's different night vision scopes. If you can get a Gen 3 or Gen 3 Plus with an adapter to put a camera on it, these things are absolutely amazing. So again, it all depends on money. You're looking at a few $1,000s for anything decent. And then you've got to get the camera on top and the adapter. All sky camera, these can be found on the market more and more, and they are also becoming more affordable. From what I've used and seen, they are a fisheye lens that captures the whole sky, so you can just sit back and not worry about filming. Just make sure that if you buy one, it has a day and night function. Some new ones automatically zoom in on objects if the sensors pick up something, because they're connected to a computer program, which is pretty cool. They basically just look like a security camera. So you've got the white bit around it and then a dome on top, and it's got a fisheye lens looking up. And yeah, just look for all sky camera, UFO all sky camera. I had one years ago that I homemade, and I'm looking at getting another one soon, but apparently now they've got computer software that you can connect to them, so if they see anything moving in the sky, they'll automatically start recording and even zoom up in some cases, depending on the capability of the camera, which is really cool. UV, ultraviolet camera. These great cameras are basically like the infrared digital video recorders and cameras, although they are able to capture images and videos in the ultraviolet spectrum, which again, we cannot see with the naked eye. Cameras are also available that have both UV and infrared in one. So on eBay, there's a lot of people that are selling these devices where they've changed them and modified them themselves. And a lot of them are doing a really great job where they've got both infrared and UV overlapped together. They're called a full spectrum camera. So go and check them out and do some research. Thermal imaging camera. These things used to be worth a lot of money. These days, for not too much, you can get... There's different brands, but get something like this, and you plug it into your iPhone or Android, and there's software that you can download, and you can basically see, it's like infrared in color, and you would have seen it before on ghost hunting shows. Thermal imaging cameras. These can even see, in some cases, the bat mats, the installation mats through the roof, and you can see the mats. You can even see the blockages in pipes for plumbing in some cases. There's a lot of cool things, but these things can pick up bangs and crafts. It's pretty crazy. So the one I just showed you, I have a Seek thermal brand, one that plugs into a mobile phone. It costs only a few $100s. There are a few different brands and types on the market. Drone. After initiating contact and flying a drone around, you might end up capturing some evidence. I've seen people accidentally capture footage on them, although not on purpose. I don't use drones because they are noisy and distracting. So just, each to their own. Walkie-talkie. These are great to use with a team in case anyone gets separated, or if you want to send a team member into an area to look for activity and when you want to make sure the activity is not explainable. So you might send off a team member to somewhere you heard a noise or a couple of people. They can radio back and say if there was nothing there or if there was something there, or to even use it as a communication device to try and debunk something. If you saw something in the distance, it might have been a reflection or a shadow, and you get them to repeat it to see if it was somebody that might have been there or an animal or something else. Satellite trackers. Now these are a given. There's a lot of apps that you can use on your phone now. A lot of things are getting mistaken to be UFOs when they're actually satellites or iridium flares, things like that. So it's good to have somebody on the tracker at all times if you can. Using a satellite tracker is a must. Usually I have one person on it watching out for activity. If anyone sees anything, we tell him or her the direction and location. If it's not on the tracker, there's a chance it might be something anomalous. Still, in some cases, it could be defense, military, satellite that just isn't going to be registered for meanings that are obvious. You don't want these things to be detected. Sometimes crafts can appear like a satellite. A lot of the time crafts first scan a group from high up. Although you want to see reactions from the laser, unconventional maneuvers and other anomalous activity from the object, which further shows it's not a satellite. There are many types of apps and websites. Just look around, see which one works great for you, and keep an eye out for the space station or Starlink because they get mistaken for UFOs. Also watch out for iridium flares, which occurs when a satellite seems to change in size or flashes. These flares are actually the sun reflecting off the satellite. This can also happen a few hours after sundown and a few hours before the sun comes up, depending on your location. With this said, an internet connection is needed unless you can print a chart out first with satellites. Keep the person on the tracker a little away from the group so you don't get a reading on your EMF meter if you're using the internet, because this can happen when using phones that are not turned off or are on airplane mode. You might want people to take turns on the tracker as well. Sometimes you can, with some trackers, get it so it uploads all the satellites that night, and you can put it on airplane mode, and as each one comes by it will make an alert noise as well. Plane tracker. Some people still mistake planes for crafts, especially if they've got landing lights on, or depending on the angle if you're not seeing the navigation lights. So I do say for some people, especially starting out, and you don't want to point lasers at planes if you're around the world in a place where you can legally use lasers, but a plane tracker is useful for those starting out. There are many apps and websites that can track planes. However, an internet connection is needed unless you print a chart out first, though a chart won't always be accurate because flights keep changing all the time. Space weather. Knowing about and checking for local meteor showers and other space weather events is great too, because sometimes meteors and other space weather can appear as paranormal or UFO activity when in fact it's explainable. It's just best to know what's going on because sometimes crafts can appear doing similar things. I usually go to spaceweather.com. This site is really good for getting updates on the amazing stuff that's happening and what I might be able to see, including things like meteor showers. So even when you're out CE-5, knowing the space weather and keeping out for things happening like meteor showers, it's pretty cool, like just to experience it. Planetary alignments, different things. Planet tracker. This is good for a number of reasons. So many people will mistake Venus, as we hear, oh, that's not Venus, but people do mistake Venus and other planets for UFOs when they're not. So using an app or going on the computer to check where different planets are is something you should do for daytime sightings, although some people mistake planets for crafts at night as well. Now, an infrared light and beacon, this is where you can get an infrared torch, sit it on the ground and point it up, and this can be seen without the human eye, and other ET cultures and beings can pick up on this as well. So unseen to the eye and due to ETs and beings sometimes being able to see in that spectrum, or due to their technology being able to pick it up, you might want to get a high-powered flashlight and put an infrared lens over the light, or use a high-powered infrared flashlight. Put it in the middle or away from the group and point it up into the sky. You won't see anything unless you look at it in the infrared, but it's great to help the beings pinpoint where you are and make contact happen quicker. This is not a must, however, because they will always find you anyway. Contact has everything to do with consciousness. Radar detector. I don't use radar detectors myself, but years ago when there was a CE-5 event held for me in Queensland, a person bought one. You can get communication back with tones and beeps through them as a form of communication. So there's so many different ways you can go about this out there. Also recommend a weather app. You can check out the weather on your phone or computer. These apps are good for knowing what the temperature is or if the sky will be clear. Of course, you don't want to get caught up in a storm or flood or other adverse weather conditions. Also, it could be like lightning coming up, and it could be clear, it could be dry lightning, it comes up, so it might not be something paranormal, it can be explainable. Trail camera. These are great. Mine are actually up around the property at the moment. These are used a lot for hunting, but they are also great for CE-5. Most have a motion sensor that triggers the camera to start recording. If your camera has infrared, it can be used during the night. These are great to point at a group during meditation or in any area when paranormal activity might be happening. So these are what the Bigfoot investigators use and paranormal investigators. They basically are a device like that, sometime with the camo covering on them, and you've got the camera lens, and then you've got all the mini or the very small infrared lights in it. And sometimes you might see them in red at night time, other ones you won't be able to see them. But look up trail camera. They're a really good camera to have and not too expensive either. So tips with filming, you'll notice in a lot of my footage there's always like a power line, a tree, an aerial on a roof or a gutter of a roof. There's always something that I use because what I try to do is get the craft near it. And if I know that it's near a branch or something specific, what I do is I zoom up as quick as I can after that and it'll get it on the camera. Look, manual setting is great. The manual setting on cameras nowadays are almost just like autofocus. It's just not like it is on older cameras. But I find that to me, putting it on auto has worked way better than manual with the newer cameras. I don't know why that is. It's just, to me, the manual in a lot of cases still acts like a autofocus, and just using autofocus seems to be better. That's the way I can explain it. But getting a reference point near the object in the sky, then it might take you 2 or 3 goes of zooming in and out, and then you can zoom up really quick and you start to see it on the viewfinder tiny and keep zooming. That is a tip, is having branches, a gutter on a house roof or an aerial, something that you can get a reference point and then zoom up on. Try to get as much detail as you can and try to be calm and enjoy the experience as well. There is a lot of stuff that can be ours, even things that appear to be ET vehicles, so just be aware that there's our stuff and then there's their stuff, meaning otherworldly, and not everything is going to be otherworldly, though we are capable of some quite amazing technology these days that we do have in black operations and such things. Physical evidence. As a heads up, whether seen or not, sometimes crop circles will appear and also landing marks from a craft before, during or after you go to a location and connect with otherworldly intelligences out in the field. This phenomenon shows more than what meets the eye, which can happen during CE-5. Orbs sometimes appear low on the tree line, hovering around the trees. They might leave singe marks on the trees or burned leaves as evidence. Also, the tops of tree branches might be broken, which is also a sign of a paranormal event if it can't be explained. Thus, in their own way, they again leave you with a form of confirmation and evidence. Crystals and stones can be left for numerous reasons. They might appear around you, in your pocket, or on the ground at your feet, sometimes as a gift or as confirmation of contact. Even objects you might have lost years earlier can appear out of thin air or in your pocket. This is a way of letting you know they made contact in their own weird and wonderful way. For some, small scoop marks, pricks or dots can appear on one's body, and in some cases, forming a triangle or constellation on the body can appear after contact. Sometimes these marks can be a form of upgrade to the body or a checkup type physical this can be linked to. There is probably a lot more, but just beware of these types of potential events. So a lot of these physical type things can happen during contact as well. At my own events, sometimes people with health issues are spontaneously healed. This has happened a few times. This continues to happen to this day, and so far the health issues have not come back for some. Strange and wonderful things can happen as a result of a CE-5 experience. So this is just some of what can be expected, the technologies that can be used. Like I said, the number one tool and technology is the heart space. And I just hope that this is just some food for thought like everything else. So I hope this has been educational and beneficial. Blessings, and I'll see you next time.